All right, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth episode of the Daily Dose of Tech. My name is Nishko, and I have started this YouTube channel where I will be discussing about the topics related to the tech. Everything about the tech. This is not specific to any programming language or any domain. Also, the playlist which you are currently watching is up is called the Daily Dose of Tech, and the main goal of this series is to just come up with any topic and explain without any preparation, just randoms. We can go into any specific things into deep, and there's no just script about it. This is gonna be the fifth episode where we will be continuing our journey. Uh, which we started for around the Azure Bicep. Those who don't know, Azure Bicep is a kind of a language which is used to deploy your infrastructure on the Azure. And let's get started. So, okay, obviously, without any doubt, if you wanted to follow me along this journey, you can always subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, if you want to connect me professionally. If you want to ask me anything about anything, not specific to this channel as well, my personal opinions and blah blah blah, so you can definitely follow me on X. All the codes and everything related to the tutorials and whatever going on this channel are gonna be on my GitHub, so you can always find out me there. And the most important thing, if you want to join a big community that we are building here, then join my Discord channel. This is a channel where we are working on creating, I guess, the biggest tech community, where we can do a code a lot, we can do live stream, we can discuss about things, we can discuss about what are the changes coming on in the industry, all those things. So we are building a very big community out here. Please go and check it out. All the links of whatever you are seeing here are provided in the description. And yeah, feel free to comment how you like about this video, what you wanted to improve, and how you want to take it. Was the previous one a bit easy, and was the previous one tough? You would like to go into something specific? Anything that you feel to comment about the channel or the video, please feel free to do it in the comment section. All right, moving to the next slide, we have here, we started with Azure, the definition of biceps, so I'm not gonna go into this today. Then we study the different ways to deploy the bicep. Then we understand the benefits of using biceps. All these things you can watch in the previous videos, it's already present there. We also discussed about the different uh, scopes where your infrastructure can be deployed via the Azure Bicep. So it's tenant management, subscription, and resource groups. There is also a note here in the below that all resources are not deployable to all the scopes. All Not all resources are deployable to all the resources. My bad, let me correct this right away, otherwise I will forget about this. There is an issue right here. So not all the resources are deployed to all the scopes, that I would like to convey here. All right, and right. So, and there was a mistake here which I didn't get chance to fix earlier, which we discovered, right? So I installed the Azure CLI, also called as AZ CLI, and yeah. Okay, let's continue. I'll open this from here again. Yeah, so as I presented here, that not all resources are deployable to all the scopes, so it's very important, and don't take it as a rule of thumb. There is always an exception to all the rules, and we'll see by along the video. We'll see how we the specific data exceptions that here. All right, then we have um, discussed about the resource providers and the types. Resource providers means the resource providers are some sort of specific team, I'll say, or specific kind of services within Azure that take care of the similar resources. For example, Azure Commute is a service by Azure, Azure Storage is a service by Azure, and they all have their own specific kind of different type of resources. For example, Azure Commute comes with Azure VM, Azure Azure Compute, not Commute, sorry. Azure Compute comes with Azure VM, Azure Virtual Disk, Azure VM skill set. All these have different purpose, but yeah, these are all under the part of the Azure provider. And the link, and we discuss this because we there is a kind of a link how Azure organizes its resources, based on the providers, and it's kind of directly related to when we are using that. When we are trying to deploy that Azure service, we have to use a specific URL with an API version. So there it's very important. Okay, we started around in somewhere around the second video that how to install the Azure CLI and how to install the Azure Bicep. I would like to just update one more thing, which is Azure Easy Bicep install is what something I did, and let's see if the install, if this gets updated. Perfect, so it's getting updated here. Perfect, that's all I wanted. Then we worked on creating our first bicep file, which I already showed you. We worked on deploying our first bicep file. We learned that for deployment there are 4 scopes, and for each of them there are some specific keywords that you have to use after the deployment. That's a basic keywords that you can get and know about it from the Azure CLI. You do not have to memorize about it, and just for the sake of recapping, we use the Azure subscription for our first deployment. So that's very important thing to remember, that what we were doing. And while deploying our first resource, which was a resource group, we came across and discussed that there are 2 names that we need to provide. One is the resource name itself, and one is the deployment name. And the kind of resource name is which reflect once you deploy your resources, and how it's going to show on the Azure when you type or look for your resource. So you have to search for your Azure name. Deployment name is kind of a history that's maintained on the Azure deployment blade, and the suggestions that I provided to you, that we should always, for every single changes, even within the Git, when we are working on a application, we always use Git, and we provide the commit right to all of the things. So we always should use the deployment name. We can try to link it with the Git commit history, or we can use the deployment name. The deployment name should be very unique and should reflect each of the deployments that you are trying to do. This is gonna help you in a way that in case in future, if your deployment went wrong and you wanted to take a look at track, obviously there are other ways as well, like Azure activity, Azure activity, right? And activity logs. By that you can obviously explore about it, but yeah, it makes more it provides more kind of an efficiency when you are providing a deployment name. Okay, then we worked on our first parameter file. So as you can check out in the previous video, that we deployed our first resource without any parameter file because we were using the default values. So it picked the default values, and now we wanted to have more variations with using the same bicep file. So we created a parameter files which were kind of which provides you the flexibility to not only provide the default name, but you can put your own custom values for for some of the for the parameters that you wanted to accept, which can take the custom values, right? So there you can provide. If not, then it's going to use the default value. So we started with that. Right now, we discuss in the recent videos, we discussed that what are the different bicep keywords. Obviously there are many keywords within the data types, within the data types, arrays, booleans, integers, which we discussed yesterday. But yeah, apart from the data types, and we have a var keyword, which I'll show you how it works. We have a resource keyword, which is something we use when we want to define which type of resource we want to deploy. So that is where it comes. We have an output. For example, once the module or once your file gets deployed completely and you want to show some of the properties in the outputs, you can use the outputs, and the outputs can also be used to pass those properties into some other down the line bicep files so that they can use that as well. Then comes modules. As I explained you, it's one of the feature of the bicep as well, that we can organize our code in the modules, and here we are using, and here I'll show you how to use it. And so basically, if you have to use a modules, you need to use the module keyword so that we can use the module in our bicep file. We have a using parameter which is used for kind of mentioning the bicep file in the parameter file. Right, and after that we are going to discuss about the import, existing, loops, dependency, and many more. So these are the things which we are probably going to discuss more, and I'll show you how to work with them probably in this video itself. We discussed extensively in the last videos about the different types of operators. We started with any, which I explained to you that any is kind of used with, it does not need to specify any specific value. Obviously it's quite common how we use in the other programming languages, but we started with any. Then we have array, which is obviously we can use any of the data types, and boolean is pretty common as well. Then integers, then objects can store any type of key value data. So the key likely to be need to be a string, but the value can be an integer, a string itself, or a boolean, or an array, whatever you want to put here, right? Then we have strings, which is pretty common data types in any programming languages or any language. Then we have a union type that I would like to show you, and the nullable types and securing strings and objects. This thing I have not specifically used a lot in my personal project, but I am gonna take a look in some down the lines where actually these type of things can be applied. So these are all the resources does not need to pass any secure string or anything like that, but we can use this thing in some cases, right? Yeah, that's pretty much, and let's continue our today's working, where probably what I'll be doing is writing it up our bicep parameter file for any one new resource, and that resource probably we will be using to I'll be trying to explain how we can use all the others kind of resources, right? So a different resource providers needs different types of inputs so that they can create that infrastructure. But yeah, I'll be showing you how to use that in this one. All right, okay. As you all might be knowing that we started with these two parameter file, and then we had our resource group here. So resource group does not need a lot of properties, and you can pretty quickly deploy your let me just remove this minimap, and you can pretty quickly deploy your infrastructure. To deploy our resource group, we just provided the name, we just use the location where we want to deploy that, and the tags, right? We provided the default values in case if any of the user is not providing that value, right? So in the parameter file, but if they are providing that value in the parameter file, then kind of the parameter file values will be used, and your resource group will not gonna use its default values. Obviously it makes sense from in terms if we are using any programming languages. Now what I'll be doing, that I will moving this whole in the resource group folder, and we will start working on another type of kind of service it's pretty common. We probably you will need, you can, you might be knowing, I'll say. If not, I'll just explain. But what I'm gonna do is that I'll start with a service called route table, because that is something that is pretty easy and we can use. It's kind of a one level higher than the resource group, and the properties that we need to and kind of whatever the parameters we have discussed as of now, that we can use some of it now. It's not a big service, so we do not need a lot of time to configure the things, so it's gonna be quite quick, right? Right, so since we used here, we are gonna first create with the same naming pattern my first route table.cc.bicep. Oh, not bicep, but I have to use the bicep parameter file, because that's how you define the parameter file. And I will be creating one more resource, my first route table.ce. Oh, this one was correct, the copy one I have to update, so I'll just update it. Right, we now have it. Now to start working on this, close all saved. To start working on this, as I explained you, let me close all my tabs. As I was explaining to you guys that there is nothing to memorize here, and I will, when working with something related to Azure is a very big cloud service provider. You cannot remember anything. You have to conceptualize few of the things why we use a service, if it's gonna be a better fit in terms of cost and in terms of the needs of the application. So you have to analyze a lot of services if you're working in different and projects where you there is a good amount of investment in Azure, right? But it's totally a waste of time if you start remembering things. I started doing that, but it somehow helped me in a way. I won't say it was kind of totally waste of my efforts, but it was helpful in a way that sometimes you do not understand a lot of concepts right away, and it's very important at the same time to keep moving, and not sticking at the same place. So you should memorize things, but yeah, make a note of it that at this point of time, at this specific thing, I have memorize this concept, but whenever I get chance, I'll come back and get a proper understanding of the resource, right? So as I was explaining, and when we were working with the bicep file for the Azure resource group, I showed you that there is a Azure resource group official bicep template, and whatever resource you want to deploy, it's always better that you should type official bicep template, and that is going to give you the first link that where we have this thing. So and the good thing is that you should probably take a bookmark of this, as I already did, that here in the bicep list. Oh no, I didn't, but let me just take a look. Azure, so I'm gonna just mark it as bicep official template. Okay, I have a bicep official template, and if you just see here, I'll be making it a bit small so that I can just show you everything that is here. Few of the things are not important at this point of time, but yeah, what is important is that all the resources here are kind of organized based on the resource provider. If I take a look at some of the important services, that is API management. So it's provided by the API management provider, and there is an impact of the provider and the type. So this API management provider provides a service of type gateways, and you can always use it via /gateway. But there are a lot of different resources where you can go into that. So DevOps comes with the Azure DevOps provider. You can use it to deploy Azure DevOps as well. GitHub, you can do it, right? Graph service, you can do it. A lot of different things which I even haven't used as well. But the thing is, we discussed actually Azure Resource Group, and the now next thing that we want to deploy is called route table. It's relatively a slightly more having more configurations, and what we will be doing is that I'll write again route Azure route table official bicep template, and it's gonna probably give me the first link, so which is route tables. So before directly going into the route tables, if any one of you is not familiar what the services do, what does this service do, so I'll just take a moment and explain you. Is that we have a network, we have a concept of Azure network, so which is called private network. I'm going to kind of, I don't know how to say, but kind of very, very beginner level of this concept. So in Azure there's a concept of called networking, which means that you can define some IP range, for example 10.10.10.01 to 10.10.10.0. I don't know how IP formats, but that's a 24, right? So this is a kind of a private IP, and all your resources which want to have the IP within this range, they will be deployed under the this IP. So if they are deployed under this IP and they are kind of attached with the private network, let's say I'll name it A, private network A, then they are allowed to use any IPs between this range. Now as you grow in cloud, there are a lot of ways for you to secure your traffic, right? We do a lot of things, so securing your traffic is kind of done by a lot of ways, where you want to direct all the internet traffic going out from this private network to a different machine, let's say a firewall, and the only responsibility of this kind of flow of the network in your infrastructure is for privacy reasons, right? So anything, let's say if this has to go to a service B, you can direct any resources who wants to go anywhere, they have to go through the firewall, so that they can check all the threats and whatever things that needs to be, right? That you can do it. And this kind of navigation where you have to send your traffic to before reaching to B, you have to send your traffic so that it goes to via some service. You have to place a route table in that network. The purpose of route table is that instead once it's there, the purpose of route table is that instead of going directly, if it's not there, you will be going directly, but instead of, if you have put a route table, it's gonna route you via some third-party service. So there is a route table, so now if you have to reach here, we have to go through first the firewall and then here. And what we do in the route table, we define some rules. What I was explaining, that we define some rules, that if a network traffic is coming from A, and if it has to go B, then it has to go via C. So you can block the direct access. This is not allowed, and all what is allowed is just going via this third service, right? And that is exactly what the route table is going to be, and we will be configuring that. We are not gonna make a VNet or something, but just for the sake of understanding the bicep, we are gonna use the route table. Now to use that, I will be just going directly and copying the route table, you know, bicep parameter file. Just taking a moment and pausing it. Okay, so I'm back, guys. Sorry for this. Probably you might not be knowing about it, but yeah, okay. So what I was trying to show you guys, that we just copied a route table bicep parameter file. And why we copied is that because the way the parameter in any bicep file is organized is provided by Microsoft itself, so you cannot write it in a way and how you would like to it. It's kind of an official um, it's kind of an official API, I would say, that is designed and released by Microsoft, and they keep updating it. So there is also an API version, you know. So they when the service gets improved, they keep adding and change the syntax or how it looks like as well. Uh, in any resource, so for example, here we are using route table, right? So and obviously we are not, because we how can I show it to you guys? Because there is a route table bicep file, and then we use, as I explained, in different bicep parameter file, their parameter p1, p2, p3 to deploy three different route table at the end, 1, 2 and 3. I mean, we did this similar thing in the resource group, so we can apply the same thing in any of the type of resources, right? What I'm trying to say, that symbolic name, you can name anything, but for the sake of simplicity, because I keep everything of one file as a one version. For example, this is just purely whatever Microsoft has released and I want to use it, so I'm just gonna write at this point of time as route table, that's the symbolic name. And you have to give it a unique name in that specific bicep file so that it can be also copied, right? For example, if you write another resource with a route table, but it could be a resource group as well. For example, if I just use this thing and I paste it here, these are not present, that's why these are the parameters and these are not defined here. So for example, let me take that as well. Okay, let me take this as well and I will just paste it here. Okay, obviously I have to use this as well, so what I'm gonna do is that I'll just provide everything. Okay, so for example, this is also a what was it, resource symbolic name. I could have also given this, although this is a resource group, I could have also given this a route uh, table, but it is gonna give me a complaint that the specific that the declared. Okay, let me just hover it again. The identifier route table is declared multiple times and remove it, rename it. Okay, so this is kind of a variable name you give to a resource that you can later use in your uh, later part of your code or something like that. But for any specific, even though you are going to define another route table, the symbolic name for this specific configuration should be different always, right? Okay, now here is the catch. In the resource group, we have defined the target scope as subscriptions, but here we do not need to. A route table can be deployed in the lowest scope present, and as we know that there are 4 scopes: tenant, management group, subscription, and then comes the resource groups. And the lowest kind of the lowest level of scope is the resource group, so we are gonna do it here. Okay, the one important thing that I also would like to share with you all is that uh, while teaching this bicep file, you do not have to kind of remember all the properties, because the properties comes with the features and functionality of a specific service. So if I'm using a route table, there may be a lot of different properties, and if I'm using a bicep, there a resource group, there would be different properties, and they will be having different meanings. So you do not have to specific something, remember this. Okay, what is the use of this when we use this? These are just a kind of a name that will enable some functionality in the Azure. you know. For example, here you have to define some id, some properties. So and these are kind of published by the resource providers. They kind of uh, write this in a specific way. For example, the route is going to be an object, and then this is done. All right. uh, Before starting, I just want to go through uh, different types of data types that we have used here in this specific uh, different types of data types that we have used here in this specific route table file, right? So starting with location, which we have already discussed, they are saying that it's a string, name, the route table name that we would like to give, and as it's gonna appear on the uh, as it's gonna appear on the Azure, it's gonna be that name. And then comes the property. But beside property, there is also a tag which we have already kind of you know looked earlier in the resource group deployment. So I'll be just doing this here, and I have to define one of this here and just clear this. So wait, my bad, this got badly formatted. Control shift Z. Oh god, I messed up with the file. Give me a second, guys. So this is still, 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 this. Okay, so route started from here. Properties. Okay, my bad. Yeah. Oh, tags, customize properties, tags. So this is closing here. Okay, customize properties tags. I was not aware about it. That. Uh, what else do we need? I'm just trying that where I can provide that value, but I'm not getting. So I'll be just we'll take care of it later. Is equals to resource group, and right. So this is here. Okay, we'll see is if this is something different tag than the other one. But okay, let's quickly go and check directly there that tags. So they might be providing what the use of the tag, but looks doesn't look like that they have specified. So here is a kind of a tough situation, because in the Bicep um, official templates, you might not be getting the all the values explained in the right format, right? uh, so it's kind of difficult. So you do not have, but the best way to deploy a Bicep file or any resource is to first understand about that resource and then take a look at the biceps, because what features exactly translates into the Bicep file, which is accepting some requirements to deploy with that specific features. So you have to correlate that thing. Okay, so we discussed that for route table, this is the URL, this is the first property which is expecting that where we want to deploy the route table, then the name, and then the properties, resource groups, booleans, id. There is a route id. So in the route table, basically we defined a set of routes, and for that set of routes we have an id, we have an string that we need to provide, and in the Azure portal as well, you have to basically provide these things as well, right? So properties, and then address prefix, next hop, where you want to uh, move your traffic to the to a next hop before going, and the type. So basically few of the things we do not know, right? So what the type exactly it's looking, we can get it from here. So type is the type of the resource, and now how we will be getting the what type of resources, it's here, it's not mentioned here as well. Type, the type of the resource, I'm not sure where it's mentioned. Okay, so the best way is that we can take a look at one of the properties and examples here, so that we do not experiment a lot of time here, you know working with the things. route table with route, so we'll see one of this resource. So here they have provided everything. What I will be doing is that I will be copying that from here and will show it to you guys. Route table main.bicep, and do they have a parameter file? Okay, so they have defined the parameter files here. Oh, that's a schema. Azure deployed JSON. Metadata name, then BGP routing, routes, description, metadata array, counting formal routes, enable, delete log, variable resource. I'm just trying to look at the different values. So here's the thing, let me just figure it out. Okay, the following Azure can be used to deploy the resource. Okay, there is a one Azure verified modules that I still need to discover. Value propositions, so I'm gonna start this thing. So they have just mentioned it here, but next hop type is here. I'm not sure what to provide it here. For example, let me, okay, now because if we'll come to that specific property later, but at the time we do not need to know that what exactly we have to provide. But as of now we ultimately know that this property is needed a string, right? Our first goal should be parameterize these all values. It's not compulsory, but eventually when we are writing for an enterprise company, we should have all the things parameterized. PARAM. So I'll start with location. I'll put a default value. That's how I usually do. You can ask chat GPT or anyone to do the same for it as well. Then param, I just go directly gonna copy these values because it will be helping me to kind of remember the properties, and you can give any parameter name as well, right? So it basically gonna give you the flexibility to write anything. But why I am writing this in the same way that it looked, because it will be easier for me to remember. So now I'm going to add an array, and that array will be having an object, right? So which I can provide later. But the array object I am just trying to understand here is that if I just define PARAM object, so I'll just gonna give a route of type object, and it will be having an object, so ID, which is gonna be of type string. How to write objects, I do not know, so we'll check out the official documentation quickly. Let's say, where is that Azure official documentation? I have mentioned it here. So basically here we cannot provide it anything, so I'll just skip it for the time. And eventually we have to write in a same way in the parameter file. um, I will try to show you how to do it in an efficient way, but this is let's just write the rest of the thing as tags is equals to is gonna be an object as well. Now we have come up with a lot of different things, a lot of different parameters. Let's just replace with the default values, because eventually we would like to uh, kind of provide the values from the bicep parameter files. Now this is this format we need. Our route should be following this thing. So what I'll be doing, I'll just pasting it here for the meantime, so that we can remember the uh, format of the array, and we will be replacing that with this. And here is the tags, so I replace this with here tag, right? Now to be honest, it got stringed, but that's not our main objective. Is what now we have to do this is that, as we know, in order to use the bicep parameter file, we need to use the RT, and we have to kind of come up with all the uh, BGP propagation. Let's say it's true, parameter location is, let's say, it's a string, and we have to provide it. Why it's not taking Canada Central? Oh, it's just a single string, I guess. Canada Central. Then comes param name is equals to my first route table CC, and then comes param routes, which we equal to this, right? So we have defined everything here. We have defined our route here, and then at the end, so your reference is always going to complain if you are missing any of the parameter file. So param tags equals to object, and let's say I would like to see as well how that is reflecting. So I'll just giving it a name that key 1, and it will be having value 1, right? So let's see. So we have defined everything. Now this is just an example. You may not be aware about the service, but what I'm gonna do is just providing the value. So let me write my first route, and we will get to know that there would be some way of writing this thing, and we eventually, or even the bicep does not provide that way, but we will see from the deployment that how that bicep file can write in a specific way, and we then have to improve it. And I will show you that whole process, basically how it's difficult. So ID, I'm not sure what we have to write, but the name, what I would like to see is as my first route. Let's see if this way it works or not. Address prefix, let's say 10.0 10.0.0.0/32. Next hop, what I would like it to go is 10.30.1.32. No, let's say 0, and I will just take it as 1.32. Next hop, I'll say virtual appliance. I know here it comes a property virtual appliance, and type string. I do not know about this value. So at this point of time, let's just skip this thing, and let's try to deploy this and see how what are the mistakes that we are doing or anything like that. And it I want to emphasize is that that your ability to deploy bicep or write bicep file is totally different from your ability to deploy or know your service. You can be great at writing bicep, you can be great at working on things and organizing files specific to bicep, but the success to deploy a resource using bicep needs the experience with that specific resource as well. For example, if you are not sure or not aware about what are the different hops available in a route table, different hops means what are the different type of services where you can forward your traffic before reaching it to its final destination, then you might not be able to provide that thing, right? And these for example, uh, it quite present here. I will just show you that here it's present, although the route in the route table here it's present that the different things that we need to specify here is internet, virtual appliance, virtual network gateway, vnet local. So different things are present, but if you are not aware what to use, and there are some conditions sometimes in some of the ways that you can use Azure virtual appliance to a specific type of IP, right? So that experience comes from two ways. Either you can know about the service and try deploying that thing, or either you have seen a lot of bicep parameter examples itself where that would be that all types of scenarios are coming up. Okay, now I do not have anything to write specific. The main goal of this writing parameter file is to show you and get you all familiarized with the different types of data types. That's my main intention. My goal is not to teach you how route table works here, but that just for explanatory purpose. My goal is to provide and show you all the possible best practices and the limitations of this bicep when it comes to deploying your infrastructure as a code. I'll just quickly take an example, and probably I know it's already 12 minutes left, so we're gonna try to deploy this in the upcoming videos. But yes, so we started with an example in today's video. Take it as a recap of what we studied just so far, that we started revising all the different data types, and when we did that, we came across we decided that okay, let's just now take a real service and let's write a bicep file for it. So we started with route table. Okay, and that route table needs some specific properties. For example, the main property that I would like to share is that I cannot click the other tab. So the main property that I would like to share is that next hop next hop address prefix. So route table is having three different things. So address prefix, next hop, or next hop type. This we do not care what's the value. What I'm trying to say that these are accepting data type of string, 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 string data types. But the thing to consider here is that the two of the parameters or values are basically an IP which is containing a number. So here in Azure, all the IPs are using string values. They are not int, because that's we obviously we cannot show this in the int. So that's why this is int, and there are different types of values that a specific property can accept. That's also in string, and these are all wrapped under an object called properties. So here comes our Second data types which I would like to show objects. Okay, let me just point it out all the different possible, all the different data types that we have used here. This is string, this is string, this whole here is an object, you know, we because we have a curly braces, and that object is having a key value of possibility string and string, right? And then this is also an object, this whole thing is also an object, and then this specific route, this is an array of this object. That's what we have covered. And again, it's in a some way it's like I have to take a lot of context to explain you guys what are the things that I the next thing is the next episode is something like it cannot be covered in that 8 minutes, and I do not want to extend the chapter, so we'll just talk about some random stuff. But before that, there is one more example, that here is a boolean. So we have covered everything from a boolean, from an object, from a string, from an array. So we have seen these types of what's pending is that int, null, how to use null. I'll show you some examples where we can use nulls, because that's I do not, for example, if you do not need this type, what we have to do it, should we be just skipping that value, or should we be just type a null to it, right? So that we have to define it, right? Because obviously it's by default accepting only strings, so we cannot write null to it. We can just skip it, we'll just not use it, and if it's complained, that we'll see what are the values of what are the values we have to provide to it. All right my friends, all right. I think in the next video we will start by deploying our first route tables, where we have added a lot of different objects, data types, and we'll see if the values that we have provided in a way is not is not deploying and giving us errors. I'm pretty sure that we will be getting an error, but yeah, let's see in the upcoming videos. All the notes, before ending this videos, what I just want to say that all the notes I am preparing, around focusing just the bicep, all the notes are present on my Notion page. The link will be in description. So you guys can provide me any feedback if you ever want to have study Azure. If you're studying it, you do not need to maintain your own notes. It's pretty easy. You can take a copy of that Notion thing as well, Notion page, and that will be having all the questions and all the information that even the Azure documentation stays. I will be providing that in there. So if you are about to go into an interview or something, just revising what Azure is about, you can just have a look at that file itself, right? All right, thank you everyone for watching this video, and yeah, see you tomorrow in the next video.